take it. And the cup is more than half full now. If you love him, you live it right. So give her your love and the cup will full. Your sky could never gray. Doubt can wipe a smile away. Sun, it shines up above. From out the darkness comes your love. Into the world it brings some light.
I remember years ago, a dear friend of mine who spent most of her life in Europe. She lived in Paris most of her life. And I said to her, I don't understand why you shop all over this city for fresh produce when we have these wonderful markets in New York City. She said, I will never walk into a supermarket, and I will always feed my family. It may not be necessary, but I feel it's necessary. I'll feed my family from the places that I find that are more concerned with organically grown. Where, what does that mean? Very often we hear stories about the diet in a certain area in a certain part of the world is what is accounted to for there being practically no cancer in that part of the world.
I am a breast cancer survivor, a blood cancer survivor.
I'm Dr. Holly Lucille, a naturopathic doctor.
I am a mom of a teenager, Bass account owner, military wife.
My name is Dr. Deanna Atai, and I'm a breast surgeon.
I am a cancer survivor who is looking for answers just like you.
I'm Deborah Tripathi. I'm a medical oncologist.
What works, what doesn't? Welcome to Thrive with Namrata. As you just watched, Diane Carroll talked about food. I'm going to talk to my experts about food today, and the topic of today's episode is food, fads, and cancer. I'm going to start with you, Holly. Food and fads. Such a thing as fads or just good food?
Oh, I think there are such a thing as fads, absolutely. I mean, it was over 2,000 years ago, Hippocrates himself, right? Let food be thy medicine and thy medicine be thy food, or something like that, right? But I think using food as medicine is so important because, as I always say, vitamins, minerals, enzymes, those are not just a couple aisles in your local health food store. Those things are what drive your biochemistry. They make every single biochemical process in your body work. Those nutrients are needed, and we can get good food and have great nutrients, but you do have to watch out, I think, for some of the fads that are out there. Absolutely.
Deanna, foods, fads, such a thing?
Absolutely. I agree 100% with Holly. What we eat is so important, and we don't really even understand all of the nutrients and all of the micronutrients that are in our foods. It's not as simple as taking a pill or a broccoli supplement or things like that. There are things in broccoli that may not be in broccoli supplements, and how real broccoli or real foods interact with the other foods that you're eating. So I think that is very important. As far as fads, there's any number of them. Sugar feeds cancer. You need to be on a macrobiotic diet. You should only be juicing. Make sure everything is organic. We don't really have hard and fast answers for all of that. So one of the things I usually give my patients as advice is just eat to take good care of yourself. And all of the things that you already know. Lots of fruits and vegetables, not a lot of saturated fat in your diet, know where your food is coming from. That's probably the best advice I can give in terms of diet.
What do you think, Debu?
Well, both food as well as physical activity, if you think of the larger concept of energy balance, are very important. But as you heard, it's very difficult for us to put our finger on what is the ideal food combination, what are the micronutrients one should focus on, as well as exactly what physical activity or what is ideal body weight that we're all supposed to maintain. There are some clues from studies that have been done, but we are far from knowing precisely what is the best approach, and it probably varies from individual to individual.
So are you guys telling me that good food is good for you, but may not necessarily cure cancer?
I would definitely think that food in general, I think some really important points is it needs to be as clean as possible. So what does that mean? I mean, I think when you're dealing with any disease, but cancer especially, you want to be able to reduce exposure to environmental toxins or potentially contributing factors as much as possible. So I think a really good, solid piece of advice is definitely as Deanna said, know where your food is coming from, organic as much as possible, because those pesticides and herbicides, there's been clinical research to prove that they can be endocrine disruptors. And so when you're looking at the influencing factors towards why somebody has developed cancer, you want to identify and treat the cause. And so reducing exposure, once again, is so important. So hormone-free, non-genetically modified, nutrient dense. Where do you get nutrient density? In plants, right? So fruits and vegetables. And then of course avoiding things like refined sugars that are nutritionally valueless, trans fats, saturated fats that can increase insulin resistance, which we all know is a contributing factor in development of cancers as well.
So here's a couple of questions that come to mind. And this is, again, my job today is to play devil's advocate and to ask questions on your behalf. So I am not trying to disagree with these wonderful people. I am just trying to get to the bottom line. So one of the things you guys said, rightly so, because I looked it up on Dr. Google, as we find macrobiotic diet. The wife and daughter of the gentleman who invented it died of cancer. You've got Linus Pauling, the Pauling Institute, vitamin C, died of cancer. You've got Hulda Clark, the Clark Protocol, the cure for all cancers, died of cancer. So the question here is, when you talk about, for example, Holly, great point, you brought up eating your food as clean as possible because they are endocrine disruptors. Study just came out, plastic bottles, BPA, we always thought was criminal. BPA is bad for you, disrupts your hormones. Now the new study is saying, well, maybe BPA is not all that bad for you. It's okay. You really don't have to be that concerned. Now there's something else. So the coffee, several years ago, if you had breast cancer, coffee was just bad, bad, bad. As you guys know, study just came out, the Million Woman study or something, especially particularly triple negative breast cancers. Now there's a reduction in triple negative breast cancers with coffee. So the question is, in terms of fads, when you say organic or eat clean or, eat certain types of food that are less sugar or whatever that would be, is that just something that we know right now that's going to change in a few years? And the bigger question is, should a cancer survivor be driving themselves crazy trying to do this stuff, trying to stay away from coffee, only to know 6 years later, it might not have helped you, but it wouldn't have hurt you?
Well, I think that we should keep things simple. That's usually my advice. I think that certain elements of the diet we know are helpful: refined sugars, simple carbohydrates, minimizing trans fat. These are all things that are rather solid, and I think everyone should follow it. When it comes to things like only buying organic, in a perfect world, I think it is a good thing to minimize your exposure to many foreign substances. We don't understand how chemicals and BPA interfere with our bodies. They interfere at some level. We just don't have enough information from long-term outcomes. So obviously it makes sense to minimize your exposure. But what if you're a struggling single mother who really has to be careful with their bills and cannot buy organic food? Well, I would say, don't worry about that. Focus on the important things of your diet that I mentioned earlier: physical activity, your emotional health. These are important. It's a matter of setting priorities.
Absolutely. And the other thing that I would say is it is so easy to drive yourself absolutely crazy. I have to eliminate all of this, or I can only eat that. And as you said, many people that have developed some of these diets and protocols have themselves died of cancer. I think it's important to understand that it is possible to do absolutely everything, quote, right, and still develop cancer or still have side effects from your treatment. So most things in moderation, and do the best you can.
When I was diagnosed with breast cancer, I actually went on a juice protocol with organic kale smoothies in the morning, kefir and oat bran for lunch, and no animal products. Basically turned my house into one large water filter of about 10 different types, including my bath water, and purified my air, did everything to control what I was putting into my body, only to be diagnosed with the most aggressive cancer, the blood cancer in the world. So I think what I am taking away from these experts is, don't drive yourself crazy. Do what you can, but don't drive yourself crazy, because it sounds like the jury's still out. And what is true today may not be tomorrow. So in the meantime, live the best you can. But as Dr. Tripathi said, also be happy. If there's a certain type of food that makes you happy, go for it. In moderation, go for it. Don't exclude anything, because we just don't know.